What's going on, dude?
How you doing?
Doing well, doing well. All right. Let's see here. North Korea has basically declared war on the U.S. and nobody seems to notice. Well, I mean, it's because North Korea's been at war with the United States since when? The 60s, 70s? Have they actually been able to do anything to us? No. I mean, what do you like? What's your point on this? I guess
the point is that everybody's wrapped up in a whole lot of other stuff that doesn't really matter. It's a lot trivial nonsense. Not that I think North Korea is any real threat, because I truthfully believe no country is a real threat to us. But nobody even talks about this stuff. It was a couple of weeks ago they officially, they said it. They said that this is basically something or other. We're going to be at war with America. They made some broad statement. The point is, nobody.
Well, they say that all the time.
Right, I know, but the point is that nobody's really paying any attention to anything that's coming from countries. They're more or less paying attention to, the nonsense that goes on here between little groups of people, and they get wrapped up in things that are pretty trivial overall.
Well, I mean, North Korea, in my estimation, is trivial compared to the threats of China, Russia, Islamic extremism, things like that.
Yeah.
Because North Korea doesn't really. I mean, they don't impact us at all. I guess.
You're right. But those other countries aren't really going to have a real threat towards us either. They're not going to do anything to us.
So Russia hacking into the DNC and releasing a lot of Democratic Party emails. That's not toying with our election. That's not tipping the scales a little bit.
In my estimation, no, because I have my own theories about the election, and I don't think on the level to begin with, and I think, maybe.
I think that's a more interesting topic. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, I mean, I really believe that the two-party system is totally broken, useless system.
Sure.
And I think, do you really think it even matters who wins? I don't.
Oh, yeah, to a certain extent. Well, you're looking at multiple different policy position changes. I mean, Hillary Clinton's not proposing to deport 11 million illegal immigrants.
You're right, but you're 100% right. But he's proposing that, but he'll never actually do it. He can't. It'll never happen. It's just It's just a lot of bluster and hype to get people who want to hear this type of thing all riled up.
But you're not worried that he continually asks whether we can use nukes or not. Why we can't put nukes in Europe and things like that?
I'm worried either way. I don't think don't take me wrong. I'm not any Trump supporter, and I'm also definitely not a Hillary supporter. That's my point.
Sure.
I'm not going to back anybody in this system because the system is broken and it doesn't work. And the position that they're running for holds a lot less true power than people like to think it does. And the way I see it, the real power is way above either of their heads.
Who has the power? Is the question? I guess
the money, the banks.
The banks.
Central bank. Serve has the power, really. They're the ones that move the needle on big decisions. Because the president. I'm only 27 years. How old you are, but I'm 27. I've lived through a few different presidents, and not one of them, either direction, changed my life significantly one way or the other. It's more or less just regular economic cycles. Things are good for a while. While there's Democrat, there's Republican. They always get 2 terms because that's the way it works. But they don't really do all that much to change things for you or me.
Well, I mean, I would argue against that. I mean, if you look at policy positions in say 2001, Bush v. Gore, I think that had a substantial effect on what happened in Afghanistan. A couple years later, do you think that Al Gore would have done the things that George Bush did to start the Iraq War? And by the way, I'm not saying I was against the Iraq War either. So, or I'm not saying I was against it. Yeah.
No, I don't think he would have, and I think that's precisely why he didn't win. Because I think the presidents are selected, not elected. There's a reason why we have an electoral college, because it's not a representative system.
Well, I mean, the Electoral College was set up back in the 1700s, or I'm not sorry. I guess it was actually instated in the 1800s. For like its form right now, anyway. So I mean, but it wasn't instated with the clear intent of, well, we're going to shape elections. To a certain extent, electoral colleges still have to vote with their constituents.
Well, it's kind of up in the air. It's kind of dicey. They're supposed to, but do they always? We don't really know. We don't really know what happens. In Florida, in the 2001 election, there was definitely some fishy stuff going on in that election.
I think that's an understatement, yeah.
And there's always something going on. There's always something. And it's never really, I don't think it's never really on the level. I don't think it ever really matters. I'm not going to get wrapped up in it. Sure. I know, whether he wins or she wins, the only difference will be the way that the words are said.
See, I can't agree with that, though, because you've got one candidate who has antagonized a lot of our NATO allies in saying that, oh, well, we're not going to help Ukraine fend off Russia, even though they're a NATO ally. We're not going to work with Mexico because they're sending in their rapists and murderers and some, I assume, good people.
But I think it's kind of like a chicken and egg thing. I think that real movers and shakers have their plans for what we're going to do as a country and how it's going to shape the economic stage here. And whatever their plans entail, they're going to help and push and get whichever one of those candidates falls in line with their ideology better. And then, then when they do get in, they push the agenda. They push the agenda. They don't follow that agenda as major. Which U.S. historical always is.
Do you think it's just the big banks, or do you apply this logic to big pharma, health insurance, places like that?
I think any got a big, gigantic company in any form of business, I think their hands, they have in the way things shake out. But I think the big banks would really control whether or not their money is worth anything.
Right.
That's what's the important thing that controls the country right there.
Well, they're more concerned with economics and tax breaks, things like that, not necessarily social changes and where we're moving, to the left as a country. Such as the issue on gay rights, things like that.
But that's how they do it. All of these political, the issues that they get debated on every year, or every couple of years it changes. It goes from abortion to gay rights to racial to foreign policy. It's always something. They always change it up, but whatever it is, it always has a background undertone to it, and it's always moving something in a direction. This year, I see a
Right.
lot of I see a lot of in the media and everything. What I'm looking at, what I think is going on, is they're trying very hard to get a lot of people to be divided, to not to really strongly disagree with each other to a level where they can't talk to each other anymore, and to lose focus on what's really going on, what's really important, and how I think they're going to have I think there's going to be a major conflict in the next 5 to 10 years. Major conflict with big countries involved, not these small scale things that have been going on in the past few years. And
You're saying World War III is going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years?
Possibly. I think there's a good possibility. I think when you look at what's gone on in the past year alone, if you take world history and you overlap it, because history always repeats itself, and you look at what happened in the years leading up to World War I,
well, history doesn't repeat itself. It has patterns, but it doesn't repeat itself.
Come on, yes, it does. It repeats itself. It does a lot of the same things over and over again.
It's a common phrase, and you know, it's kind of like history is written by the winners. It's actually not. Quite a bit of history is actually written by the losers. I would refer you to say.
Well, okay, but you do know. I don't mean literally the same country, the same place, the same thing. But the same ideas, the same patterns fall into place over and over again throughout history. Okay.
Right, patterns maybe, but the history, the actual context changes.
No, it's not going to be the exact same thing as World War I, because the countries involved and the way it'll shake out will be different. But the way I look at it, a lot of the same patterns are happen in the years leading up to World War I. You have countries breaking off from close-knit unions that they have with each other, isolationists becoming, sort of fragmented and pairing off, making small alliances with countries, under the.
That's not what happened in World War I, though. World War I was clearly, I mean, it was two different alliances going at each other. I mean, they were not small groups by any comparison. When you team up, Germany and the Ottoman empires,
and then those groups paired off and made into two big sides. But in the beginning, it was Austria-Hungary and Serbia, fought against them, and Germany took the side of the Central Power. Yeah, or it's basic idea is the same. You get the countries that are once part of a big, complex group of alliances like NATO is now. You're getting countries like the U.S. who we're talking about. Trump's talking, breaking away from leaving the NATO policy. You have England breaking away from the European Union. Talking about, 20 years, 50 years, or 100 years.
Well, see, I think that actually demonstrates how, our two presidents, or two potential presidents, could deal with the situation. I mean, you're literally, you're illustrating, I guess, my point, in that there's two very different policy proposals for each candidate.
My point. My point
very clearly
is that you'll see very quickly which way we're going to go. I look at it differently than you do. I'm looking at it as a way that, he's going to break away, make us isolationists, build walls, all this. She's going to be the opposite way and be sort of more policy as usual, the same ideas. But what they want is leaning more towards the isolationists, breaking away, siding with England, not being part of a group with all those other countries anymore. Just like France is now starting to talk about doing the same thing. And if you start to get three or four of these big countries, United States, England, France, and maybe one more, that break away, and then you have Russia on the other side, Russia and maybe, some of the Eastern Bloc countries that used to be a part of Russia. And
most of the Eastern Bloc countries actually don't like Russia anymore.
They have no choice. Russia is so big and so strong what are they going to do? If Russia decides to,
we're going to back them up. I mean, we've done the same
Are we?
thing in Ukraine. We did the same thing. We did the same thing in Georgia. I mean, we do back up our allies. You know what I'm saying? It's not like all of these countries are just falling to Russia because of.
Will we, if we become an isolationist state where we don't get involved in those, and then, you know, if that begins to happen, and it builds, and it builds, and then all it takes is one spark, one big country to get, you know, in the way, and then all these, you know, everything could pop off very easily. It's not that far fetched. When you start getting countries that were once in a much larger group and you pair them off in small groups, you know, you run the risk of having major implications, you know, when people start to act out of turn.
I would say that'd be a great reason to not vote for Trump, but
well,
I mean,
that's why I don't think our vote really counts.
Do you think that Hillary Clinton would have us leave NATO and have us leave? I mean, Hillary Clinton's going to vote for the TPP. I don't care what she fucking says. She's lying, and everybody knows it. I mean, she's voting for it. She's going to pass it.
For what?
The TPP.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I mean, she will pass it. Trump, on the other hand, very easily one could see would be influenced by other Republican leaders and say, no, we're not going to do this globalist policy. Which is why I think that this election, more than probably any other, would be maybe a diversion from previous U.S. policy. Nobody's talking about, you know, Kissinger and, you know, some of his plans for making the United States kind of the leading imperialist nation in the world.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think you're just more optimistic as far as how much of it actually. I think regardless of who they choose to be the face of it all, their plan is already in motion.
Well, you know, I don't actually think that there's an overarching plan to this. I do think that because this is still a democracy, because it's still a representation of, to a certain extent, what people feel in the United States, it isn't concentrated in one group. Now there is a lottery on who creates policy, and the dollar amount is quite high on it.
It's not really a democracy.
I mean, I'll agree with you on that.
It's not a true democracy. That's the biggest mistake. Yeah, it's a representative democratic republic. Which basically,
right, but we still elect the leaders that represent us. Now that may need to lend itself to people being more informed, but to say that all of this is already planned out, I think is I no. There's not enough evidence to support that. I would say.
Well,
too many things have happened for that. Too many things that actually that influence has happened to actually make a strong case.
I don't know. I don't know. I see it as sort of it's kind of like a dog and pony show just to distract people. That's what I see it as. The illusion of choice. I don't think we really do have a choice.
Are you gonna vote?
No, I never do.
No. Okay.
Yeah, I won't back up. I mean, even if I had normally done it, I definitely wouldn't have done it this year.
Yeah, I mean this election especially. I mean it's tough to find a reason to support any side. I think we can both agree on that.
You have bad and worse, so it's not really worth it.
Absolutely. I'll tell you, you're breaking up a little bit on me. I actually have to do one more thing over here. I appreciate the conversation though.
We'll talk about something else sometime.
Absolutely. Sounds like fun, brother.
Have a good one.
All right, you do the same.
Bye.